Hi, Leanne Johnson, Realtor here with United Real Estate Solutions, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about the cost of living in Knoxville, Tennessee, so stick around. All right, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thanks so much for tuning in. And today's video is about the cost of living in Knoxville, Tennessee. So I thought it would be best to start by defining the cost of living. What is that exactly? The cost of living is the amount of money you need to sustain a certain standard of living. The 5 categories that I'm going to consider in this video are housing, of course, as a realtor, that's my very favorite, groceries, utilities, healthcare, and transportation. The 2 sources that I found the most helpful in my research were payscale.com and smartasset.com. For this comparison, I tried to choose cities in the southeast, so we're looking at the same region as Knoxville, and also looking at the same general population as Knoxville. So the city of Knoxville has about 190,000 people, which is very different than the overall county of Knox County, which has about 470,000. So for the sake of simplicity and consistency, for this comparison, I chose 5 cities that were around 190 to 200,000 in population in the southeast. So, the 5 cities that made my list to compare to the cost of living in Knoxville, Tennessee are, drumroll please. 1. Little Rock, Arkansas, with 184,000 people. 2. Tallahassee, Florida, with a population of 193,000. Richmond, Virginia, also with a population of around 193,000. Montgomery, Alabama, with a population of 198,000, and Fayetteville, North Carolina, with a population of 209,000. So I want to start by comparing a salary of $50,000. So assuming that you are moving from one of these 5 cities to Knoxville, Tennessee, and you earn a salary of $50,000, assuming you're a single person with no children, of course those numbers are going to be quite different if you have multiple salaries and children. But for the sake of simplicity, we're going to say $50,000. So if you move to Knoxville with a salary of $50,000 in your previous city, the new salary that you would need to sustain that level of living in Knoxville from Little Rock, a $50,000 salary would equate to a salary in Knoxville of $42,900, which is 14% less. From Tallahassee to Knoxville, that income would change to $42,500 to sustain your current level of living, which would be a 15% decrease. From Richmond, Virginia to Knoxville, Tennessee, $42,700, a 14% drop. And from Montgomery, Alabama to Knoxville, $44,500, which is a 13% drop. And the last one is from Fayetteville, North Carolina to Knoxville, Tennessee, in which a $50,000 salary in Fayetteville would equate to a $44,000 salary in Knoxville, a drop of 11%. So as you can see, overall, between all the 6 cities, including Knoxville, the overall cost of living in Knoxville is less. So as we begin to look at the 5 categories that make up the overall cost of living in this comparison, we're going to begin with transportation. We're going to finish out with housing, because as a realtor, of course, that's the one I think is the most interesting. So let's start with transportation and dig right in. In Little Rock, the cost of transportation is 5% less than the national average. In Tallahassee, it's 2% less than the national average. Richmond, Virginia, 8% less. Montgomery, Alabama, 7% less. And Fayetteville, North Carolina, it's 2% less. So I'm going to let you guess what you think the cost of transportation in Knoxville, Tennessee is as compared to the national average. It is 16% less, a significant difference. So Knoxville is the winner for sure in the cost of transportation between the 6 cities of comparison as compared to the national average. Okay, so the second category that we're going to consider in this comparison is utilities. So for Little Rock, The average cost of utilities is 15% higher than the national average, with an average monthly electric bill of $198 per month. In Tallahassee, the cost of utilities is 14% lower than the national average, with an average utility bill of $144 a month. For Richmond, Virginia, it's 6% higher than the national average, with a monthly average of $178 a month. Montgomery, Alabama is 7% higher than the national average, with an average utility bill of $188 a month. In Fayetteville, North Carolina, the average cost of utilities is 5% lower than the national average, with an average monthly bill of $158 a month. The average cost of utilities in Knoxville is 10% lower than the national average, with a monthly average utility bill of $150 a month. For the utilities category, Tallahassee did win, and Knoxville was number 2. The third category that I'm considering in this comparison for the cost of living in Knoxville, Tennessee is healthcare. In Little Rock, the average healthcare cost is 10% lower than the national average, with an approximate $100 doctor visit. In Tallahassee, the cost of healthcare is 1% lower than the national average, with the average doctor bill costing you $109. Richmond, Virginia, it is higher by 8% than the national average, and the average doctor bill there is $119. Montgomery is 18% lower than the national average, and it would cost you about $91 to go to the doctor there. And in Fayetteville, it's 5% higher than the national average, costing you about $116 to go to the doctor. In Knoxville, we are 13% lower than the national average in the cost of health care, with an average doctor visit costing you about $97. So as you can see, Montgomery, Alabama is the lowest city of the 6 for the cost of health care, with Knoxville a close number 2. The fourth category that I'm going to consider in this comparison in the cost of living for Knoxville, Tennessee is groceries. A huge expense in my family with multiple hungry boys. So this is an important one to me. I've done this one fourth. So let's start with Little Rock. Little Rock's cost of groceries is 7% lower than the national average, with a loaf of bread costing about $3.08. In Tallahassee, the cost of groceries is up 10% higher than the national average, with a loaf of bread there costing you about $3.66. And in Richmond, Virginia, 12% below the national average. A loaf of bread there is going to set you back about $2.94. Montgomery, Alabama is 4% below the national average, with a loaf of bread costing you $3.19. Fayetteville, North Carolina is 4% below the national average, about $3.20 for a loaf of bread, and Knoxville, 14% below the national average, with a loaf of bread here costing you about $2.86. So Knoxville is definitely the clear winner when it comes to the cost of groceries. Last but not least, we are to the housing category. It's the one you've all been waiting for. So here we go. So let's just jump right in with Little Rock. In Little Rock, the cost of housing is 11% lower than the national average, but 19% higher than the cost of housing in Knoxville. The median house price in Little Rock is about $307,000. Next is Tallahassee. It is also below the national average by 9%, but higher than the cost of living in Knoxville by 21%. The median home price in Tallahassee is $315,000. The next city is Richmond, Virginia, also below the national average by about 11%, but higher than the cost of living in Knoxville by about 20%. So some of those numbers have been rounded. Instead of me reading them to the tens and the hundreds places, I just rounded up. So that's why those numbers may seem a little bit different. The median home price in Richmond, Virginia is also $307,000. Montgomery, Alabama is below the national average by 19%, which is a huge amount, but still higher than the cost of living in Knoxville by 16%. So in Montgomery, the average home price is $288,000. One more city before Knoxville, Fayetteville, below the national average by a whopping 29%. The median home price there is $247,000, and Fayetteville has Knoxville beat by 0.6% in this category. So Knoxville is below the national average in the cost of housing by 28%, and the median price of a home here in Knoxville is $250,000. So taking all of those categories into consideration, the overall cost of living in Knoxville is 18% lower than the national average, 17% lower than Little Rock, Arkansas, 18% lower than Tallahassee, Florida, 15% lower than Richmond, Virginia, 12% lower than Montgomery, Alabama, and 13% lower than Fayetteville, North Carolina. So when it comes to the cost of living, you can see that Knoxville, Tennessee has tons to offer its community. And that is one reason I love living in Knoxville, Tennessee. So if you have any questions about the area, cost of living, housing, feel free to contact me. My name and number will be below in the description, and I would love to answer your questions. Feel free to leave a comment. Where are you from? What is your city? And it would be interesting to compare your city to Knoxville, Tennessee. So feel free to leave that in the comments as well. Also, please take a minute and subscribe to the channel. And if you will click on that bell, you'll be notified every time I post a new video, so you won't miss out on a thing. Again, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.